All right, so Starfruit trees. There's 5 of them here. This is actually one of the other teachers at work, Mr. Green. He brought in some fruit. I think he brings his in mid to late fall. I think I just got these 5 to germinate and all 5 lived. Mrs. Taylor also brought some in, I think much later fall, maybe even early winter. I don't really know exactly when they bring these in. I didn't take any pictures when I planted them or anything. Actually, I have them in some used potting soil and just figured I'd see what happened. Hers, none of those germinated. I think it was kind of cold, and then there was like a 40-degree night like a few days after I put them in there. So I think that just kind of did it. They didn't germinate anyway, so I mean, they're goners. Get a couple of them repotted today. Well, I mean, I'm not going to try. I'm going to get a couple of them repotted today. I'm going to clean all of them up. A couple of them I've tried putting just a little bit of wire on. This one and this little bit of a bigger pot, I think I might just leave in this pot now. A little bit bigger than it is. Has a lot of weeds in there. So I'll weed this guy, get these weeds out of here, and then maybe try to a little bit of a better adjustment on the wire. These pretty much all had escape roots. I have just all 5 of these pots. I actually have them all sitting right next to each other to keep each other from blowing away, keep the weeds out from around the bottoms of them. And then when they got the escape root, that also kind of helped them from blowing around too much. I do remember when I put the little bend in here that you could hear it cracking. When you see these mature, I see plenty of them mature around because you can see the starfruit, I mean, get like this big. So, you know, once this is a actual tree and has starfruit on it, the branches all bend way low, but then of course they leave them on there to try to get them as ripe as possible. So they do wind up being kind of like wide spreading trees, and I think it's just mainly from the weight of the fruit. You know, in the bonsai hobby or whatever, usually they talk about the conifers and everything and the pines with the lower hanging branches from the snow. Well, here in the tropics, this will get some lower hanging branches from the fruit. But the main trunk does have a habit of staying really straight. And I know when I did put this little bend in here, you could actually hear some cracking and everything. It's got a branch coming out right there going straight up, which would actually be in a good spot because it's not on the inside of the curve. And then it does have a little new growth coming out of there. And ordinarily, if I did not live in the tropics, I would try to bend that back up, but I actually think it'll just kind of curve back up on its own. The sun will draw that out. Almost like to consider leaving this one just in this pot too, but it's just about the tallest and the thickest of all the seedlings I got going here, and has the most roots coming out of the bottom too. I'm going to get it into something a little bit bigger, but since it is thickening up nicely already, and I've got the bend in it, really sure how this one comes up a little bit better. Just trying to, this one does have a few feet of roots coming out there, kind of keeping a root bound like that. But I think it's just worth just not disturbing it, especially since I was able to leave the wire on it, keep that bend in there. Go ahead and just bring it up a little bit higher in the pot. As I got that better substrate down on the one side, I could actually feel the root ball falling apart a little bit. That should draw those roots out. And they really do love this lava rock and pumice and everything. They really will grow through that. Sometimes when I'm doing work just similar to this, I would put it out in the shade, but this one I might just put it right out in the sun. All I really did was clip the roots off the bottom. That's the only roots that really got disturbed there. Right, and since this is all new to me, this one here, I was actually considering trying to slip pot this one into here. But I think one of the reasons why this one even stayed small is that the dirt only comes up to there and there. Just see if I can separate it and maybe just fill the bottom of that container up with some better substrate. And just as I put it back in there, you guys could probably see it was just getting to the edge of the pot with the roots. And so I'm just going to rough it up around the edges there. And again, these tropical trees hit that good substrate. And then I want these two for fruit. So I don't really want to put them in any kind of bonsai soil or anything like that. I am just going to put them in some Miracle-Gro cactus mix. I use cactus mix for everything. See, now, I hadn't had any wire on that one at all. This one's actually probably the best growing one of all of them, actually, just as far as tallness, although that first one without the bends would probably be this tall. Definitely heard some cracking when that was going on there. But I would like to kind of keep these straight-ish. I think that this is just good exercise for the tree. And there we are. Root system actually seems like it might be. I also would like to get some fruit. I do see that the Weigerts, or the local bonsai nursery here, they have a few, and when they get fruit, they'll post some pictures and stuff and everything, but they're not big enough to really get a lot of fruit. And I'm also perhaps under the impression that maybe they only let a couple of fruit live and just kind of pull the rest of them. Found this kind of interesting too. Here's, oh, I thought I was just going to pull it up and throw it away, but maybe I'll save it. I actually have it sitting kind of down the way a little bit from some of my ports. And I say we'll walk by and trim my ports all the time, but there's a little piece that just kind of fell on the side of the pot there and took off. I put a dwarf jade coming up out of there. One had a little less root ball, so I went ahead, teased out the ends there just a little. And I'm kind of getting in a hurry here because I just noticed that my Miracle-Gro potting soil here has a little cluster of ants or something going in there. I'll work quick before they start spreading out too much. Alright, and when I first shot that video, it was February 26th. I think today is like April 19th or 20th or something like that. I decided to do a little update for you today. These are the three that I plan on keeping in containers. I'm going to start with the easiest one, the one that's probably doing the best, and and also that I have in the right size container or whatever. This actually happened to one of the other ones too, and I can see on one of these in the original video, you could actually see the little sprout of the kind of, I'll go ahead and say like a new apex showing up. Not really a new apex. I mean, this thing isn't really big enough to have anything to call an apex yet, but most trees are very apically dominant, meaning that they just want to grow straight up. So even though it's been kind of doing well over this way or whatever, it just decided to sprout itself a new straight up one. Some of the thoughts that I had were to try to, put a bend in this one too. I think maybe the thing I might do is just kind of leave that on there and let it keep going straight up. Try to keep some twists in the rest of it. And eventually think about cutting that off whenever this thing gets to like any kind of, thickness or whatever here in Florida. I probably won't have a problem with that, being that I don't have to keep it indoors or anything. And then this one, kind of just left this little tray underneath, because this one I've actually had sitting on, in another pot that just isn't quite full, but it is another pot full of good substrate. And you can see those nice white healthy roots kind of coming through there or whatever. But I'm going to go ahead and just trim that off. And take it out there and put it right back where it was. Just kind of let that happen again. Kind of wish it was in a slightly bigger pot. But it was just repotted, I just repotted on that video a couple months ago, or in this video, I guess. Wow. That was actually one root. That was actually one root through there. It was just a bunch of hairy ones after that. Anyhow, like I said, I pulled it up just enough to loosen it and just kind of twist it so that same root doesn't try to do the same thing again. And this one here has done the same thing, as sprouted a straight up piece or whatever. All right, and then there's this guy. And this is the last of the ones that I for sure will keep in the containers and try to do something with or whatever, but still got the good bend, not growing nearly as well, in a much smaller pot. No extra sprout, coming up off there or anything. But I did also kind of notice that it only has those two little tiny roots, a little bit of there, in that hole, drain hole, and a little bit in this drain hole. So what I'm going to do with this guy is I'm going to just straight slip pot it. I'm not going to disturb that root ball at all. I think I kind of remember in that other video, I didn't watch the entire thing just now, and it's been 2 months, and I'm getting kind of old, so I don't remember everything I said. I'm going to go ahead and just slip pot it into something much bigger. That other one, I'll probably go ahead and let rest in another pot, and then since I've got this one in the terracotta, I do like to let my terracotta just kind of escape in the ground, and I can just kind of experiment with it a little bit. I mean, plenty of these things grow around here, you know, people's yards and stuff. I do worry about my nematodes and everything. I've got, my yard has some nice little plants in it or whatever, but they're all like bromeliads and things like that, things that don't really require a lot of fertile soil. All right, let's see about something like that. Yeah, that looks healthy enough. That gap there, I don't know if you guys can see that. That's just where I had a little bit of good substrate in the bottom of that, so I'm going to go ahead and reuse that. Get that wire a little bit better on there, maybe get that second bend that I tried to get before. Yeah, something like that. And I went ahead and went with the terracotta too, just as a little bit of an experiment. Most of my plastic pots this time of year I water once a day, and sometimes they almost kind of seem like they may, you know, you could almost go every other day. Terracotta really sucks all the moisture out of it. But then once rainy season comes, I notice sometimes the plastic pots will look like they're getting overwatered where the terracotta won't, because it just kind of lets some of that excess moisture bleed out. All right, and then there's these two. And these are the two that I was planning on. One of them probably keep it in a bigger container, and one of them eventually putting in the ground, but trying to keep both of them just for food and everything. And sometimes when I do my experiments, I do them on purpose. This has actually been an accidental experiment, but one of these has been kept in full sun, and one of them hasn't. I want to care to take a guess on which one is which. But this one's been in the full sun, and this one is not. The difference being, I mean, sometimes when I put them out there, and again, this was just kind of an accidental experiment or whatever, but when I put them out there, you know, I had all these, you know, at the beginning of the video here in just a bunch of little tiny pots. And of course, you got to, you know, spread them out, get them in bigger pots, and I was just kind of putting them where I had some room. This one gets probably 7 or 8 hours of like morning through noon sun, maybe 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, something like that. And then this one gets like a couple hours of sun right at the end of the day. It's blazing hot, and I thought that it would kind of make up for it or whatever, but it definitely, you know, like I say, you know, has not. It's healthy. Leaves are bigger, leaves are greener and everything. But, you know, this one here, like, I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but this has like a green stem starting here that hasn't even started lignifying yet, just straight up like that. And then this one is really lignified all the way up to there, and now it's got 2 branches actually coming up here where it's getting 2 liters now or whatever. So, I mean, that's kind of the difference between, you know, when they say like more sun, shorter internodes, smaller leaves and everything, less sun, bigger internodes, bigger leaves. That's exactly what happened. But they both seem to be doing fine. I may even just, since I've got these here now, I might even just switch their position. Put this one where this one was, and put this one where this one was, and just kind of see what happens over time. Both healthy though. All right, and I kind of figured, you know, I do try to reuse my wire, but some of this stuff is laying around, just kind of getting in the way. I figured even if I am going to put them in the ground or something, it really wouldn't hurt to have a little movement in there. And you never know, I could always like go to dig them up one day. So rather than just leaving them arrow straight, while I still have them like this, and they're nice and flexible, I'll put a little movement in it. I mean, now I'll just leave that hanging there and get one bend in it. That'll be plenty for both of them. Now that, you know, now that I'm kind of in the hobby and everything, it is amazing how much differently you look at all kinds of trees and everything. I do know that sometimes, like, you know, you keep these straight and healthy, you probably get a little more fruit off of them just because they balance themselves out a little bit better if they're straight. But I kind of like the beauty of the whole thing too. So this one I think I can get 2 bends out of. And we'll see what happens.